G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and I'm not talking about the lion, I swear. So, I said I didn't want to do a video on the lion because I felt that I don't have an awful lot here that I can actually give people to sway their opinion one way or the other. And I kind of stand by that. And it's different in this situation to most because when it comes to Primarchs, especially, and characters are so beloved within the franchise. People cannot stand, I have to choose my words very carefully here. People cannot stand being told that they're wrong for liking something. Okay? What you like can be very subjective. But I think back to the nightmares I created for myself by expressing my hatred towards Rabute Gilman. I don't hate this model. Really want to stress that point. But I think back to when Gilman came out and I said this is an awful model. Now I note so many of the comments about the Lion are he looks so much better than Gilman. And there are a lot of people who say they don't like the Gilman 40k model. This goes to show that over time people's tastes or feelings about something change. And I don't think that's exactly a radical thought to have. I think most people listening to this would agree. Yes, people change their attitudes and opinions over time on things. Gilman is a prime example of Mr. Circle was right, not a great model, but the amount of negative feedback I copped for expressing that opinion 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it might be now, I don't want to go through that again. Because I'm not the biggest fan of this model either. Okay? I don't hate the model, but I don't think it's deserving of the very high praise I'm seeing it getting at the same time. I'm much more middle of the road in that regard. And there are things I can poke fun at, things that I don't care for, right? But at the end of the day, it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's also not a total failure. It sits somewhere in the middle. It is a perfectly acceptable model for 40k. Is that the craziest opinion to express? No, I don't think so, but then again, it's the internet, and I've been surprised more than once before on the internet. Now, my biggest concerns with this model come from the fact that I worry about the storyline, the plotline in 40k. I don't necessarily want to get reinvested in that franchise. I'm a 30k primarily based channel. And 30k has an absolutely fantastic Lionel Johnson, which it looks, in my mind, far superior to the 40k one. It just oozes charm. It has all these knightly values about it, has the heraldry that you would expect, has things like hexagrammaton markings, little gothic reliefs on him. It's just a very, very good model. It's pitch perfect. Even the pose, the slightly wide leg stance, the way that he's swinging the sword suggests power, drive, whereas this Lionel Johnson's a very different character. He's striding confidently towards you and mirrors a lot of the same poses we've been seeing repeated time and time again lately, and that's fine. I wouldn't stop a person from using this model against me in 30k. Do you want to run this as a plastic Primarch? Go for gold. I just don't see what benefit apart from being plastic this has to offer. But, everyone is going to have their own opinion on that sort of thing. So why would we split hairs over it and complain? There's no point to that. There are odd design choices here, but the biggest one I just will come back to is, what does this model offer over the old Lionel Johnson? Basically, it's a shield. And it's a shield that I think looks like it's ripped from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It looks nothing like any of the other equipment we see on, like, the Custodes, for example, who a lot of their war gear and their styling of armor is modelled off the Emperor. You think something like the Custodians' Presidium shields, for example, would be captured in the Lion here. But no, we have just a heater shield, essentially. This would not look out of place on a Karl Franz, that shield, right? So maybe when they say it's the Emperor's shield, maybe that's the Emperor they were referring to. I don't know. The armor is completely Primaris. I don't know what people would expect otherwise. Whilst the Primarchs in 30k take cues often from the armor of their Space Marines, like Lionel Johnson here has very much got some Mark II cues in his legs, he is wearing a different armor. Whereas the 40k one is literally stock Primaris armor, and people will go, no, it's not, no, it's not. Oh, look closer at it. All they've done is add, a little bit of a crease down the center line of the leg to suggest an edge that you can highlight there. But if you look at the sides of the knees, the sides of the ankles, those little round knobs that are present on every set of Primaris power armor are there. The actual armor on the forearm, they've slapped on a bit of like a knightly vambrace, but it looks very Stormcast Eternal. So does that right shoulder pad, almost perfectly matches the lion-headed Stormcast Eternal shoulders. It's just a bit bigger. And again, if you like it, you like it. These are the things I notice when I look at the model. His backpack is a pretty much stock Primaris backpack. What they've done with it, though, is they've added these little golden plates with stylized feathers on each nacelle that hides that shape from you, so you're not looking directly at the backpack. The little power unit in the center of the backpack, exactly the same as an Intercessor's power unit. The little round reactor I'm talking about, they've just put a Dark Angel's icon over the top of it. So he's very, very 40k. And that's fine. If that's what you like, go for it. I think that the best head or helmet for this model is I'm going to call it the Doctor Doom. And that's the left helmet you're seeing now with the hood over the top. The Doctor Doom here, because it looks like the Marvel classic character, in the comic books. That's the best looking one. Whereas the helmet with the wings on the right interfered, I'm guessing, with the Iron Halo, so they had to take the Iron Halo off because the two clashed. And you have a model that's covered in real sharp, hard edges here in this very angular, armor, this Primaris armor that made more angular with sharper edges to suggest something like, 15th century Gothic plate. And then all of a sudden on these little winglets on the sides of the helmet, you have these very organic curves that look straight out of Age of Sigmar's High Elf analog. So, those sort of contrasts and clash of styles are the things that I look at. And it's the hard part for me as a person who creates videos and critiques things is I don't want to sit here saying this looks crap and you're wrong if you like it. Because I derive no pleasure from that. But I do sit here often when I look at miniatures and say, how can someone like that? Because my taste is so different to some other people's taste. And you get this with anything in life. You look at some things and you say, there is no way on earth some people will agree with this. It could be politics. It could be art. It could be a movie, right? How many people out there liked Rings of Power on Amazon? In my mind, it was like, wow, this is objectively trash. Like, even if you rated it as a show on its own merits, this is an awful, awful show. And this is not an awful, awful model. But I struggle sometimes with understanding other people's viewpoints. Because I think, and really, the comments on my videos over the years, which I've had many years to understand this community a little bit, demonstrate is that people tend to be overwhelmingly positive on release of pretty much anything that Games Workshop puts out. Anything. You don't have a critical brain within your bodies. I hate to say it to you, fan base. But you always come around. Now, again, that's not to say that you're wrong if you like this and that this is a bad model. I don't think so. If someone turns around to me and says, this is the best model they've ever produced, I will say it's a shit model just to annoy them. I admit I am that level of petty sometimes. But that's because if they're going to over-exaggerate their opinion, so will I. Because it is not the best model they've ever produced. It's pretty far from it. I think the best model they've produced this year, by the way, is the Slan Mage Priest. That's just perfect. But again, opinions will differ. It's like that Simpsons episode where Homer buys a lobster, Pinchy, And when Homer looks at Pinchy the lobster, he sees this, cute little lobster face, a little cartoon face with a big smile and gigantic, cartoon eyes, and he looks so cute. And then when he shows it to Marge, Marge sees like this frothing monster, right? That's kind of how I feel when it comes to some Games Workshop releases. And so with this model, all you need to know is I'm middle of the road at the end of the day. I could poke fun at it. Yes, I could poke fun at anything. And I made a comment about, if you think that this is the greatest model ever, why is it spawning memes? And then people, come in with some hot takes about, well, memes don't mean that it's a bad model. No, I'm not saying that memes mean it's a bad model. That is not the point of that statement. To clarify, the point of that statement is really, really good models don't tend to get memed straight away because there is no sort of confusion about them being good. All right? The models that get memed straight away have some detail or something about them, whether it's the pose, whether it's the actual styling of the model, whether it's weird parts on the model, they get memed because obviously, there's some controversy about some particular part of the model, and we often derive humor from that. That's meme culture 101. So when I say that, this model got memed straight away, it was because everyone looked at his head and went, oh, that looks like, Tywin Lannister. I don't think it looks like Tywin Lannister. I think it looks more like, is it James Combs or Comely, the old guy in Braveheart, right? That's who it looked like to me. The one who loses his hand and then gets killed at the end of the film. And that's what I saw, right? And a lot of people point that out because I think it's safe to say not the finest head they've ever sculpted over at Games Workshop. But there is going to be someone out there who's probably not watching this video who absolutely adores this head and thinks that is great. It's the best head they've ever sculpted because tastes are funny like that. So, these are all things that come to my mind. And it's very interesting, in the marketing material and such that they're positioning the lion as Angron's foil. I really don't feel that he ever was Angron's foil. But, let's see where they go with the writing intent. Because I'm sure that after years of disappointing writing, they'll turn it all around this time. But no. Look, it's fine. It's an okay model. It is far from the best model ever. So stop trying to convince me otherwise, because you never will. But if you like it, you want to play this in 30k, go for gold. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I have bigger fish to fry, when it comes to things like consumer advocacy. But all this model really is old Lionel Johnson's model in a lot of ways. He's just a sword-wielding guy in power armor. At least in Gilliman's case, he has the giant flaming sword of the Emperor. And you could make the argument that, he's got special armor that is keeping him alive or whatever. Fine. The Demon Primarchs, yes, they're mutated Demon Primarchs. And a common thing I've noted in many comments on my videos is people saying, well, of course they look different to their 30k behalves. What did you expect? It's not that, okay, for a start, the warp doesn't represent the passage of time well. There's not 10,000 years of evolution going on in someone like Angron or Mortarian's case. My point on them not looking like their 30k selves, which does not apply to the lion, I want to add, the point about the Demon Primarchs is that they need to echo their 30k selves. They do not. None of the 3 Demon Primarchs look anything like their 30k selves. Magnus's armor looks nothing like the old Magnus's armor, right? All he has is a giant red hair and red skin to look like his 30k self. Angron, yes, he's got the butcher's nails, I guess. I think they look awful, but none of his, armor choices stylistically look much like his 30k self. I ran an experiment with people who don't play the game, okay, and people who did. And people who did give their answer, and people who don't gave their answer. And the people who don't play the game didn't think that Angron in 30k became Angron in 40k. They picked different miniatures, right? Bringing across some 30k traits it helps to establish the corruption, the fall from grace of a model. If you're going to make the model look almost nothing like, or completely unlike, their models in the previous setting, it takes away from the story that the model's trying to tell artistically. That's all. And in the case of the Lion here, it's a power armored Dark Angel, but if you shrunk this model down by 40% and put a helmet on him, even without the helmet, he would just look like exactly another Dark Angel Space Marine, whereas the 30k Lion would not. And that's an interesting thought to have. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. This is as much as you're going to get from me on the Lion. I might talk about Siege of Cathonia, but I really want more details on it because there are some things that concern me with the way that they've worded things. Like the Shattered Legions, I don't think means you're getting Shattered Legion rules. Definitely might be, but I just want to temper expectations there because they said, this character gets help from the Shattered Legions. That tends to say, Raven Guard, Iron Hands, Salamanders, gives some help to that character, not here are rules included in this book for that. So I'd like to see some clarification on some of that stuff before I go making content. But with the release of this miniature, the release of Dante, the release of more info on 30k, the release of Azrael, I think almost every prediction I made last year has come true. So say what you will about me, but the power of cynicism does seem to give me the ability to predict things pretty damn well. So anyway, that's it. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching the episode. I hope you got something out of it. And please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.